If you're tired of dealing with annoying neighbors like I am, make sure to hit that like button and let me know where you're tuning in from. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, let's dive into a story that's so absurd, it could only happen to me. Ever had one of those days where you're just enjoying some alone time, maybe by the pool, and then it turns into something straight out of a reality show? Well, that was my Tuesday. It was one of those hot summer afternoons where the air felt thick, like you could almost spread it on toast. My name's Jordan Thompson, a tech entrepreneur who's recently relocated to the quiet town of Redwood Ridge. After a long day, I figured the best way to unwind was a relaxing swim in my backyard pool. I was floating on a giant, inflatable flamingo, sipping a chilled drink. Life was good. That is, until I heard a voice shouting from a fence. Excuse me, sir." I blinked and sat up, looking over the edge of the yard. Standing there was a woman with a look of sheer fury, her expression one that could only be described as classic Karen. Beside her was a man built like a refrigerator, wearing a tight tank top that made him look like he was trying too hard. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to mask my growing annoyance. "Yes, you can," Karen snapped, her voice sharp and full of drama. "We've received reports of suspicious activity on this property." I raised an eyebrow, confused. Suspicious activity? What, like a pool party for flamingos? She didn't appreciate my joke. "Don't get smart with me," she yelled, turning a bright shade of red. "We've been watching you, and we don't like what we see." The guy next to her, who I assumed was her husband, puffed out his chest and nodded. "Yeah, you don't belong here. This is a family neighborhood." At that moment, I was genuinely baffled. I'd bought this house fair and square, and I had all the paperwork to prove it. I gave her a calm look. "I'm not sure what you mean. This is my house." Karen wasn't having it. "Deed or no deed, you're lowering the property values," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "We want you gone. This isn't your kind of neighborhood." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "Ma'am, with all due respect, I live here. This is my property." She crossed her arms smugly. "When not mistaken, my husband, Greg, is training to be a police officer. He knows how to handle situations like this." "Greg, tell him." Greg, the wannabe tough guy, flexed his arms dramatically. "You have 5 minutes to pack your bags and leave, or I'll call the sheriff's department." I couldn't help but laugh. "You're going to call the sheriff because I'm swimming in my own pool?" I shook my head, finding the whole thing hilarious. "Well, Greg, before you call anyone, maybe you should know who you're dealing with." That's when things started getting interesting. I climbed out of the pool, water dripping from me, and grabbed a towel. Their faces were priceless. Karen was shaking with rage, and Greg looked like he didn't know whether to call for backup or just run. "I don't want any trouble," I said, still trying to keep a straight face. "But you're trespassing on my property, harassing me, and making baseless accusations. I suggest you leave before things escalate." "We're not leaving until you do," Karen insisted, planting herself firmly on the grass. "This is for the good of the community." I sighed. "All right, let's play your game then." I walked into the house, leaving them fuming outside. Inside, I quickly changed into my best suit, tailored for formal occasions, and grabbed my briefcase, which I had kept since college. I knew I still had some sway in this town, and I was about to use it. When I stepped outside again, they hadn't moved. Karen was still on her property value tirade, and Greg was still puffing up his chest. I approached them with a grin on my face and opened my briefcase, pulling out a shiny badge. "Let's try this again," I said, holding it up for them to see. "I'm Officer Thompson, and you too are under arrest for trespassing and harassment." Karen's face went pale, and Greg's jaw nearly hit the ground. They stared at the badge like it was a snake ready to strike. "Officer," Karen stammered, trying to recover. "But Greg is training to be a cop." I couldn't help but be sarcastic. "Well, that's nice, but I'm the one with the badge, and right now, you're both making a huge mistake." I gestured toward my sleek black sports car, which screamed, "I'm doing well in life." "Get in the car," I said. "We're going downtown." They hesitated, but soon realized I wasn't joking. Greg's tough exterior deflated in seconds. Karen, still sputtering, was clearly losing her steam. As we drove to the station, I couldn't help but laugh. Here I was, new to this town, the new police chief, arresting a couple of people who thought they could intimidate me in my own home. It was a ridiculous situation, but one I knew I'd be telling for years to come. When we reached the station, Sergeant Harris, a gruff veteran cop with a thick mustache, greeted us with raised eyebrows. "Chief Thompson, what's going on here?" I gave him a look and said, "I'm bringing them in for trespassing and harassment." Harris tried to hold back a laugh. "Trespassing and harassment? On who?" "On me," I said, smirking. "At my house." The entire station erupted in laughter. Even the dispatcher couldn't keep a straight face. All right, I said, raising my hand to settle things down. "Let's get this sorted. Sergeant, take their statements. I'll explain later." After a quick hour of processing, Harris returned with their statements. Karen's was a rambling complaint about the neighborhood, and Greg's was an equally misguided attempt at justifying his actions. I sighed. "Sergeant, what do you think we should do with them?" I asked. "Well," Harris stroked his mustache. "Technically, they broke the law, but they didn't know who you were." I raised an eyebrow. "Does that mean we let them off easy?" "Not at all," Harris said with a grin. "How about we fine them heavily and make them do some community service?" "Perfect," I agreed. "Make sure everyone knows this behavior won't fly in Redwood Ridge." So that's what we did. Karen and Greg were fined and sentenced to 100 hours of community service, picking up trash along the highway. Oh, and they had to wear bright orange vests that read, "I trespassed and harassed." The town was buzzing with laughter. Karen and Greg became the laughingstock of the neighborhood. People even thanked me for standing up to them. Life settled back into routine, but now whenever I swim in my pool, I keep my badge nearby, just in case someone decides to show up and stir things up again. The lesson was clear. Life can throw some crazy challenges your way, but with a little authority, patience, and humor, you can handle almost anything. If you ever find yourself in a similar situation, remember, always keep your badge handy. In the end, what started as a typical day in my new town turned into a valuable lesson about standing up for what's right. Sometimes, the people who think they can push others around are the ones who need a reality check. I learned that in a world full of challenges and unpredictable moments, a little humor, a lot of patience, and the right amount of authority can make all the difference. The Karen and Greg saga may have been a strange way to settle in a life in Redwood Ridge, but it certainly left a lasting impact on both me and the community. As for them, well, let's just say they've learned the hard way that messing with the wrong person can lead to consequences. So, next time you face a similar situation, remember, stay calm, stay smart, and always keep your badge handy. You never know when you might need it. So, remember, confidence, patience, and authority can change the game entirely.